Hello, thank you for joining me for yet another video. And this one's going to be a continuing story that I'm covering about Jon Jones and his situation with the UFC following the new the win of Francis Ngannou, the new heavyweight champion, and his evident next fight being Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight championship, which is something that's been discussed even before the fight. Dana White has on numerous occasions expressed the winner of Francis Ngannou versus Stipe would be fighting Jon Jones next for the heavyweight belt, right? But as I've gone into in my previous videos, it really wasn't that simple following the win of Francis Ngannou. A lot has happened in that area, which got me thinking, especially, given, Jon Jones' tweet storm and what he said. I've gone back and looked at some recent podcasts he's been in where he talks about his relationship with Dana White. One of them was Steve O from Jackass, his podcast. Just type Steve O Jon Jones on your YouTube search bar. You should find it. That's a good one. But and though I don't agree with Steve on a lot of what he said there, but I went back to other things. I watched other interviews and read publications about it. I've been following the story, so it got me thinking. Actually, a hypothetical question: what if Jon Jones actually leaves the UFC? Now, most people will first say, look, he's under contract. I get it. But, contracts are just really something that binds you to a degree. You have lawyers that can argue in court that, this contract is not legal or, needs to be broken or whatever. And the court will decide whether there's a merit or not for that argument. So, and Jon Jones is certainly, he has access to, I would imagine, good lawyers that can, deliver that argument in court against the UFC. And it's happened before, fighters have gotten out of their contracts. Like Canelo, he was in a big contract with DAZN. He got out of that and then started fighting for them. Like his next three fights, I think, were for the zone. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it's not unheard of for a fighter to um, to get out of their contract. It's not something, So that's what I'm going to say. I mean, it's possible court could enforce that contract and say, no, you can't break this contract. Legally, you have to abide by it or whatever. So what if Jon Jones actually leaves the UFC? What if it doesn't even go to court and Jon Jones and Dana White, their relationship deteriorates and he just leaves the UFC? Whatever the case, what if he does, right? Um, so there are a few things that made me realize how valuable Jon Jones is to the UFC. And it further brings into question why this situation is being handled the way it's being handled by UFC management, including Dana White. Uh, if Jon Jones leaves the UFC, one of the things that will happen is he will go to he's certainly going to continue fighting. It would be shocking if he didn't, and he will go to one of the bigger second level because there's only one top right now. It's the UFC, but he'll I think second place is Bellator. It's either Bellator or ONE FC, but I mean, I think it's Bellator. And if not, I couldn't. I mean, I could imagine him fighting for ONE FC as well, or maybe the PFL. I mean, that would certainly be the an unfortunate outcome. I think one of the two, Bellator or one, would be great fit for Jon Jones and would allow him to continue building on his legacy, which is already very impressive in the UFC. Uh, and what does that mean? I mean, that's a huge loss for the UFC. It will prop up one of these uh, two big promotions that are up and coming, right? I could imagine Jon Jones fighting in resin. That wouldn't be that would be a huge shock. But it's possible he could even do a free agent thing, right? Where he just fights for whichever. He'll do big fights that he would like to fight in. That's a possibility. I mean, Pettis is doing it. Anthony Pettis. I think Yoel Romero is doing it as well. And yeah, a lot of fighters are doing it now, more than before. Uh, and not just for the UFC will this be a huge loss. I mean, if you think about the heavyweight division in particular within the UFC, I mean, you'll lose a lot of interest in uh, in the division. And why do I say that? I mean, obviously there's still Ngannou. Have you heard of Francis Ngannou? He's pretty popular right now. I mean, Stipe's still there, Derek Lewis. Cyril Gane's on the rise. There's a few names there. You know, there's my man Juan Espino fighting soon. That's still going to be an interesting division, no doubt. But right now, with Jon Jones there, it's the hottest division. Okay, Who doesn't want to see Jon Jones Stipe? I mean, Jon Jones and Ngannou, there's no question. Everyone wants to see that fight. But what about Stipe, Jon Jones? What about Curtis Blades, Jon Jones, or Cyril Gane, Jon Jones? I mean, these are all these possibilities. What if Jon Jones takes the championship from Ngannou and starts this new dominant reign and continues this unquestionable GOAT legacy that ends his career? There's so many possibilities for Jon Jones in the division, and removing him from that, wow, it removes a lot of interest. It removes a lot of stock in the division, right? And if Dana White doesn't realize that, and if he's playing like it's not true, any businessman knows that, right? Jon Jones is a huge asset for the UFC. By the way, a lot of people think, not myself personally, but think he's the GOAT. Um, yeah. So, I've gone through two things, that will happen. It will remove a lot of interest in the heavyweight division, and it will prop up one of those two runner-ups here as to who's the top promotion, right? And I could imagine Jon Jones moving to Bellator, and in 2 years, maybe a few other big names will follow, and they would be equals with the UFC. You know, they're like, oh yeah, Bellator used to be second fiddle, but now I don't know. We're gonna start hearing that kind of discussion, and that means Bellator in the next 2 years after that could be maybe in the top promotion, right? So if you don't, I mean, Jon Jones will take his fan base. I mean, dude, if Jon Jones later this year decides he does leave the UFC and decides I'm going to fight a heavyweight in Bellator, let's see what Frank, no, but I just want to look at who's on the heavyweight rankings here. But I mean, think about that. Everyone in UFC is going to watch that. And this is business that could be moved from the UFC to Bellator, right? And Showtime. So why am I not pulling it up? Bader is the champion, right? Is he? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's the heavyweight champion. But I mean, him versus Ryan Bader would be a great fight. Ryan Bader is no slouch, man. I mean, don't count him out. Who else we got here? Mitrione, yeah, Matt Mitrione. Roy Nelson's there. Yeah, okay. Jesus, I can't get up. I can't pull up a proper ranking on Bellator. That's kind of embarrassing. I mean, I'm saying they're second place here. I can't pull up a proper list of heavyweights. Come on. Anyway, moving on. Well, that's while I'm trying to figure this out. The last thing I want to say about this. Okay, here. Oh, sorry. Finally came up. Mitrione, yeah. Bader, I think, is the champ, if I'm not mistaken. Czech Congo. That would be a good fight, huh? Jon Jones, Czech Congo. I mean, there's still a lot of good fights to happen here, and who knows who else will show up to fight in this division. I mean, I see a lot of young Russians here. Well, Federer, is he still competing? Anyway, um, he will take a lot of fans to Bellator if that happens, and that would be the catalyst, I think, for Bellator to take the crown here. And if I was Dana White, I would be, shaking in my pants with regards to what Jon Jones is threatening to do, which is leave the promotion, right? He's acting all tough in interviews and trying not to flinch with Jon Jones, but in reality, you gotta think like as a businessman, losing Jon Jones will be a huge hit on the UFC. And also think about the fans. Us as fans, we get essentially robbed of the opportunity to see Jon Jones continue competing in what is currently the top promotion in the sport at heavyweight. We get robbed of that. And he obviously will get to probably compete in another promotion, whether it's contracted or as a free agent. But that, you know, it was still he would be able to achieve much more fighting as a heavyweight in the UFC than in any other promotion, at least until the UFC becomes declines from there, and one of the promotion he decides to go for gets propped up. I mean, there in some ways, like ONE FC, beats the UFC in terms of views. They were talking about. I remember China alone, like they get more eyeballs, from ONE FC. It's true. In Asia, there's so many more people. There's so much more money there. So if you're selling pay-per-views in Asia and you're ONE FC, the potential to make money there is huge, bigger than the US. Obviously, the infrastructure for people to have, smart TVs and bank accounts and be internet savvy to be able to have this service. I mean, I'm not whether that's in every single country in Asia is questionable, but still the potential over the next 10 years, ONE FC is positioned really well to take over from the UFC. Anyway, this video wasn't intended to be really so much about the UFC and how Jon Jones, well, it is about Jon Jones leaving the UFC, and I guess the biggest thing to be scared of is he could take with him, the fans, the interest, and he could be the catalyst for a transition towards a new top promotion, right? Um, yeah, that's all I want to say about that. I'm very excited to see what happens next. I really hope, my what I hope happens is Jon Jones comes to an agreement with Dana White and they do the fight with Ngannou. Everyone wants to see that fight, and it's done at a reasonable price. Everyone's happy, right? Because there's no way, even if you pay Jon Jones 15 million for that fight, 1-5, right? 15 million, the UFC is still going to make bank after paying him that amount. They're going to make a lot of money still, right? So let's not be selfish. And let's see, I don't know why this is going on. Some people saying it's ego. I think it's more than that. Ego certainly has a role to play. But yeah, let's see. I'm going to be posting more videos on this for sure. I'll be following the story. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. But yeah, I appreciate your view anyway. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.